Chapter 3, Part 2. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to pick up from where we left off. And we're discussing Chapter 3 of my best-selling book, Addicted to Being Broke. Let's talk about eradicating a poverty mindset. So yes, let's have that conversation. In this chapter, I was writing about becoming aware. So there's a self-awareness process that was taking place within this chapter. So it's like a thought process that I was going through, saying to myself, I know what I'm capable of. Why am I not able to overcome this whole issue with money? Why am I not able to just understand exactly what I need to do and just get out of the situation? It's almost like, okay, the next time I get paid, I will not spend anything, and then that way I get to keep everything. But obviously, it's not as simple as that. It doesn't all work out like that. So in this chapter, I was going through why I ended up in debt. And one of the things I was exploring is, what happens if you get to 80? If you're blessed to get to the age of 80 and you don't have enough money, yes, you might have like a state pension or something like that, but that might not be enough for you to continue with the lifestyle you currently have. What happens then? And that was sort of the kick to say, fix it now so at least you're on a path to a better future, a better financial future, rather than just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, which just does not happen. Start doing some things differently. So I've got a table in chapter 3 that breaks down sort of like a very simple basic maths of money. And it says 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 2 = 3. And then you go into 3, so you've got 3 basically, and you minus 1, that means you still got 2, which is savings. So let's say you earn £300 and you only use £100 out of that like gives you £200, which you can put towards savings and start growing a savings. This is just like a breakdown of numbers. And then you got 1 minus 1, which if you've earned £100 and you've used up £100, you end up with 0. Then you go into 1 minus 2. So you've got £100, but you're spending £200. That puts you in debt. And then I've got 1 minus 3, which is that you've got £100 and you're spending £300 equals stupid. And that's what I wrote down, because it's that process of just not understanding that if you're spending money, it's a minus process. So there needs to be an additional process that keeps going or helps it not get to a minus. I then go on to write about cash flow. We always hear the term cash flow when you're talking about businesses, but cash flow in daily life is very important. It's the same way a business will need cash flow to survive. You need cash flow to keep up with your daily and monthly expenses. So having a healthy cash flow would allow me to then be able to have money to pay for expenses that pop up in the middle of the month that you were not expecting, that were not within what you planned to do. But because I didn't have anything in place to protect me from things that may come up in the middle of the month, or even things that might be more this month than they were last month, there was just no way of sustaining this cash flow or having a positive cash flow. So your outgoing is less than your income, and that allows you to constantly still have money left over at the end of the month, which you can then start to put away into savings. As I spoke about it in my previous videos, you just can't get there. You really have to put things in place to be able to allow yourself to build up this cash flow. Chapter 3, I go on to break down that table and basically what it means and what I was trying to get across. Because when you look at the table, it just does look like numbers on a table, but there's meaning behind it. And then moving on from the healthy cash flow, I write about health wealth. So your mental health when it comes to money. And in this chapter, I write about how different communities deal with mental health. Because some communities, I think now it's more acceptable and more open to talk about it and express your suffering and express your anxiety, and people actually believe it as a thing, whilst before it may just be seen as it's fabricated, or there's nothing real about it. So in the book, I write about how mental health is impacted by your finances as well. And the research actually said that the cycle of money and mental health problems is basically that mental health problems make it harder to earn, manage money and spending, and ask for help. Then they fall into financial difficulty. In that financial difficulty, it gets worse because it's stress and anxiety made worse by if you've got debt collectors or you're not able to meet your daily essentials, living without your daily essentials, that then triggers the mental health problems. And it's just a cycle that you end up staying in. And I think it's really good that a lot of people are able to now find people to talk to, and there's a lot of charities out there that help people with mental health and managing money. There's so much more out there available in comparison to a few years back. So it's a really good thing, and I take my hat off to the people who provide these services for people, because it is definitely needed. People need to find an outlet where they can go and talk about these things without feeling judged, and especially if they can't talk to their family members. But as parents, I'm a parent, we should make it easy for our children to come and talk to us, regardless of what it is, because they live in a different age we lived in. In our time, or in my time, mental health, like, what is that? Like, how dare you speak such things over your head, kind of thing. Whilst for them, it's something that is so real, and they see people suffering, or they may be suffering as well, and they live in an age of social media where they're exposed to so much more than we were ever exposed to growing up. So all of these things can trigger so many different emotions within them, and they're not able to process it. Who do they talk to? So we should be open to having these conversations with our children, even family and friends. I write about being in this place of debt, being in this place of struggle, but I was still chasing my dreams. I was still chasing all these things that I want to do. Oh, I want to have a business in this, and I want to do this. So I'm still chasing all these other things whilst still in deep debt. It didn't really make sense when I look at it now. But back then I thought that would be the answer to get me out of there. That will be the thing that will get me out of there. I'll have a business and I'll be successful. But businesses need money, and businesses need time as well. So with everything that I was doing, it was so difficult to also create a successful business. There's a quote that I put in there that I really, really, really like. And it's by the author of The Richest Man in Babylon. And what it basically says is, our thinking can be no greater than our understanding. And I find that so fascinating, because I only understood that quote after I started understanding some things that I didn't know. So it basically says that you thinking about having a better life, you thinking about doing more, you thinking about great things can only be possible if you have an understanding of those things. So for me, wanting to get to a place of being better with money and wanting to break through this cycle, the process only started because my knowledge knew it's possible. So I was able to then think about it freely. I hope that makes sense. But it's very, very important. And in the process of research, I used to listen to this book as well by Brian Tracy called, I think it's called The 21 Laws of Money. And in that book, he constantly spoke about S&P 500. And bearing in mind, it's an audiobook, and I've listened to it quite a few times. And I never heard that part of the S&P 500 until I found out about the S&P 500 and find out how it worked. And then when I listened to the book again, I was like, oh my gosh, he mentions the S&P 500 in this book, but I never heard it before I actually understood it. So I hope the explanation makes sense. So now we're going to look at the reasons why people fall into debt. So now we know more about poverty mindset. Let's look at some of the reasons that people go broke and stay broke, and in no particular order. Spending more than you earn or make, spending habits, earning less than you need, having one source of income, no budget, depending on credit, trying to impress others, and investing in the wrong things. So in part 3 of chapter 3, I will break down those reasons and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much for joining me in this chapter. As always, if you've got any comments, if there's anything that's stood out for you, please do drop it in the comments, and I will see you in my next video.